The war for Wisconsin. President Trump and Democratic candidates visited Milwaukee. I'm Adrienne Pedersen. Today on Upfront. Free health care, free college. Is that realistic? Can you get that done?
Well, let me talk about it.
My sit down with Senator Bernie Sanders. He's fired up and fighting for the Wisconsin vote.
I'm thrilled to be back in your great state, a state that I won, and we won it not so late in the evening, a little bit early in the evening, actually.
And President Trump in town right after insulting Wisconsin's Paul Ryan. This political storm is surging in the state exactly 1 year from the Democratic National Convention. How the convention CEO wants to make sure the entire state benefits.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Wisconsin became the center of the political world this week. Presidential candidates came to town for the League of United Latin American Citizens Convention. President Trump also visited the state. We reached out to as many candidates as possible, including the president. Here's my interview with Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator, Wisconsin is a purple state. You're a blue guy, a liberal guy.
See how blue I am?
Exactly. You have very progressive policies. How do you think you can get back the people who voted red in 2016?
Because we will talk about the issues that are relevant to their lives. And the fact is, we're living in a nation where half of the people are living paycheck to paycheck. At the same time as the three wealthiest people own more wealth than the bottom half of America. You got 500,000 people sleeping out on the street. You got kids who can't afford to go to college. We got 80 million Americans, including many in Wisconsin, who cannot afford health care or have no health insurance at all. These are the issues that people are concerned about. They are tired of a government and an economy that works for the 1% and ignores the working class of this country.
Will you win over some of the former Trump voters here?
Absolutely we will. I mean, we did last time. In fact, if you look at Wisconsin, we did very well in Wisconsin. We won it. And we won, I think, many people who later on voted for Trump. Many people out there are working longer hours for low wages. They are disgusted with status quo politics, status quo economics, and they do want a government that stands up for working people rather than wealthy campaign contributors, and that is exactly what our campaign is about.
You won, as you mentioned, at the primary in Wisconsin, but you didn't win Milwaukee County, which is the most racially diverse county. How do you get people to come out and vote for you?
Well, I think they will, because the issues we're talking about is not only massive levels of inequality in this country, where the rich are getting richer while almost everybody else is getting poorer. We're talking about significant levels of racial inequality, where the average white family now owns more than 10 times the wealth of a black family, where the healthcare system, which is dysfunctional in general, is even worse in African American communities, where black business people can't get the loans they need to expand their businesses. So we are going to focus on those issues. We're going to focus on issues that impact blacks and whites and Latinos and Asian Americans. And that's the way I think we're going to win Wisconsin and win the Democratic nomination.
And we should talk about NAFTA, too, because, as you know, the president is in town right now, the same time you are, talking about this new NAFTA, USMCA. You're not a fan of it, but how do you help farmers in Wisconsin?
We help farmers in Wisconsin the same way we help workers in Wisconsin and all over this country, by having a trade policy that works for working people and not just large multinational corporations.
So what does that look like?
What that looks like is a trade policy that is written by farmers and workers and ordinary people, not the CEOs of large corporations. A policy that is not designed to benefit the pharmaceutical industry, not designed to make it easier for jobs to go from Wisconsin and Vermont into Mexico and in fact, other countries around the world.
Do you think this new NAFTA USMCA is better than the previous?
I think it is not good enough. And I think we need to sit down and create trade policies that work for all of us, not the people on top, certainly not the pharmaceutical industry, which is one of the most greedy industries in this country, which is charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And one of the points that we're going to make in this campaign is that it is absolutely insane that 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the medicine their doctors prescribe at the same time as the drug companies made $69 billion in profit last year.
And you're going on a bus trip to make this point.
We are going on a bus trip. This is how pathetic the situation is. Diabetes is a major epidemic in this country. Millions of people need insulin. We're going to go from Detroit, Michigan to Windsor, Ontario in order to buy insulin as I understand it, at 1/10 of the price, 1/10 of the price in Canada than is being charged in America.
Why is it so much cheaper there?
Well, because they have a national health care system which negotiate prices with the drug companies. In the United States, the pharmaceutical industry basically controls what the president and Congress do. They could do anything they want. They could raise the price of your medicine double or triple tomorrow. That has got to put an end to it. And here's one promise I will make and keep. We're going to cut prescription drug prices in this country in half if I'm elected president. And that's not a radical idea, because that is simply what the rest of the world is doing.
By when? How soon would you do that?
As soon as we can. Well, first I got to get elected.
At the ICE raids, the president has threatened these several times now. Do you think he's going to go through with it?
I have no idea what this president does, because he says one thing on Monday and something else on Tuesday, but that is a terrible idea. What we need in this country is comprehensive immigration reform. We need a path towards citizenship. We need to protect the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program, and we need a humane border policy. We don't need to terrorize people.
And he says that these are the people who they've already tried to deport anyway.
Yeah, I know. This is what he says. He says a lot of things, but I think most people in Wisconsin and America understand the president, sadly to say, lies a whole lot.
And you're kind of known as the free candidate. You know, free health care, free college. Is that realistic? Can you get that done?
Well, let me talk about it. All right, you got more than 12 seconds to do it?
I have time.
All right. All that I am talking about is what exists in other countries around the world. So maybe instead of giving $1.5 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and large private corporations, maybe we should do what Germany, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway do, is make sure that every kid in this country, regardless of income, who has the ability, can get a college education. Not a radical idea. We need the best educated workforce in the world. We should have that. Second of all, I believe we should cancel student debt. You got millions of people in this country, young people, who are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt. They can't get married, they can't have a kid, they can't buy their own home. So if we could bail out Wall Street 11 years ago to the tune of $700 billion and trillions of dollars in zero interest loans, we can cancel student debt in this country. And in terms of health care, we alone, among major countries on earth, do not guarantee health care to all people. The American people want to expand Medicare to cover every man, woman, and child, and that's what we're going to do.
And I know you already know the other side of this, that you're pushing the party far to the left. This would require raising taxes. Do you think lawmakers could get on board?
But you got to ask me the second part of the question. It would require raising taxes and ending all premiums, ending all co-payments, ending all deductibles, so that the average American would save substantial sums of money on his or her health care. That's what it would do.
My entire conversation with Senator Sanders is on our website, WISN.com, under the Upfront section. President Trump turned down the invitation to the LULAC convention, but attended a private fundraiser and spent time at a Milwaukee aerospace company. Our Upfront reporter Matt Smith breaks down the president's visit.
Arriving on Air Force One alongside members of the Wisconsin delegation, President Trump arrived on Wisconsin soil to a sea of support and a wave of controversy.
Mr. President, why don't you like Paul Ryan?
The president just hours before on Friday morning blasting the former House Speaker.
Paul Ryan let us down. Paul Ryan was a terrible speaker. Frankly, he was a baby. He didn't know what the hell he was doing.
The president's comments apparently fueled by new quotes from Ryan in an upcoming book describing the president as ignorant, a conversation that sparked among Wisconsin Republicans who attended the private fundraiser with the president in Fox Point.
A lot of cops, I don't know. I mean, this is the first time. I'm looking forward to it.
Neighbors lined to see the motorcade arrive. The event, the RNC says, brought about 180 people to the estate north of Milwaukee and raised an estimated $3 million.
What is this like for the neighborhood?
This is so awesome for Fox Point, our village. Every one of our workers has done a great job. I'm proud to say I'm from Fox Point.
The president stayed for nearly 2 hours before arriving at Durko Airspace, a Lockheed Martin-owned company, and the official part of the president's visit to Milwaukee. There, he pressured Congress, specifically Democrats, to pass the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement.
I don't want to incentivize companies to leave, fire their people, build product, sell the product over in our country, no tax whatsoever. So we end up with no jobs, no factories, no taxes, no nothing. It's not going to happen anymore, and it can't happen under our new agreement.
This was President Trump's 6th visit to Wisconsin as president, anticipated to not be the last event or fundraiser ahead of 2020. For Upfront, I'm Matt Smith.
Up next, Democratic candidates spent time in town going for the Hispanic vote. We'll go back to Matt Smith, and he'll explain why that's so important in Wisconsin.
Upfront, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.